Yo, what's up? You're watching video number 6 in a 10-part series covering Sugar Bytes Aparillo. This video is all about one new effect, the Spacializer. I'm going to be using the preset TB or not to be found in the seek folder for this example. So what does the Spacializer do exactly? It's quite unique in various different ways, but if I had to sum it up, I'd say it's a mutated comb resonator that has chaotic tendencies, but it can be tamed and tuned and shaped to taste. It's like a delay that works on different time bases, so it can be used as a resonator, a reverb, a delay, or a mix of all the above. I'll quickly note two things here. The filter and the Spacializer share a free signal flow, so you can have the filter first to feed the Spacializer with your sound, or put the Spacializer in first place, letting you shape whatever chaos comes out of it with the various filters and filter functions. Just click this little arrow button to switch between the two. The second thing is that the ADSR envelope for the amplitude is still applied to the Spacializer, so it will die with the synth sound, unlike the delay or the reverb, which will keep going. So back to the Spacializer, we need to understand the different spatial ranges. These are the different time bases that the effect is based on. 3 of them are time-based, which are large, medium, and small, and the other 2 work off the current pitch and the current BPM. The large is good for delays. The medium is good for reverbs, or kind of reverb-sounding sounds. And the small is good for resonated type sounds. You can put the mix and the feedback right up here and turn this purely into a resonator and use the synth engine purely as an exciter. The pitch mode can snap the delays to the right pitch depending on what you have the pitch slider set on. And the sync is good for large delays, which can quickly become multi-tap due to the fact that all 3 Spacializer faders have full voice modulation options. Regardless of the mode, this machine can create a wall of sound. You can turn something basic into something gigantic with just a few clicks. So let's jump right in. I'm going to select large as the spatial range, bring the feedback and mix all the way up, because why not, and choose LFO1 as the voice modulation source. Okay, way too much. Let's shoot over to the synth page and slow the LFO right down to see what we get. Sounding a bit better. Let's apply a ramp up to the feedback and let's throw LFO2 on the mix. Not bad, but let's create a cool shape with LFO2. I'll head over to the synth page and select LFO2's modulation options, and let's bring the jitter to 100% so we get that nice sine wave, and just slow it down a bit. So that's interesting. I wonder what would happen if we apply the LFO to the cutoff frequency. It's also interesting. You'll notice a lot of interesting things happen here. I might just flick through some filter types. Okay, the comb sounds good, so let's bring the resonance up a bit and let's change the feedback modulation to a mix of both LFOs. Alright, now we have some motion happening. Let's move from large to medium and see what happens. I'll remove the modulation from the mix so we can hear it 100% wet. Okay, interesting again. Let's try small. Now that's also super cool. I want to bring the feedback right up for this and make it ring, so let's give it a try. Now we have a totally different sound altogether. The feedback and mix are really dominating and acting as a modulated resonator. I think now would be a fun time to go back to the synth engine and change some of the parameters. First, I'm going to increase the amount of the decay. Alright, there's that wall of sound I was talking about. Okay, it's chaotic. Let's switch around the Spacializer and the filter, and I'll remove the modulation from the cutoff and change it to a low pass dirt. Now we're blocking the wall of sound with the cutoff, so let's use the ARP envelope source to trigger different voices in the cutoff filter. Okay, that sounds like dinosaurs fighting, so I might reduce the decay of the ARP to make things a bit tighter. So it's definitely taken a few bricks out of the wall. How about we try the vowel filter instead? But just before I do, I have a feeling this is going to redline, so I'll bring the level down a bit. Okay, that should do it. Back to the filter, let's choose vowel, and we'll give the resonant voices a bit of modulation as well. Back to the synth page, give the ARP a little more decay and speed. And back to the spatializer, let's bring the mix right down so we can just hear what raw signal is being fed into the filter. Very cool indeed. Alright, let me just reload the patch again so we can muck around with the pitch and the sync modes. I might increase the ARP decay here so we have a much fuller sound, and I might just change the scale on the shift to a minor 5. Back to the effects, I'll remove the reverb and the delay just so we have a nice clean signal. Now let's choose pitch mode in the spatializer and bring the mix up to 100% and the feedback up to say 75. Now as we play with the pitch knob, you'll hear the delays are nice and pitched to the original scale. I might try it with no ARP happening, so just a nice pure tone, so let's make those changes real quick. I'll also bring the level down a bit more so we don't hit red. So moving back to the spatializer, now when we play with the pitch we get more strange sounds. Let's add LFO2 as the voice modulation to the pitch again, but before we play a note, let's change the LFO2's values so that it's a static pattern like we talked about in the LFO video. Okay, but what we'll do is bring up the rate just a little bit so they move. So back to the spatializer again. Now when we play a note, the spatializer is sort of jittering the pitch around a bit. Let me bring it up a few octaves and apply some reverb. Now we have a haunting synth lead, and the more feedback we give the spatializer, the more eerie it gets. Okay, finally for sync mode, let me just reset the values in the synth engine back one more time so we have a nice clean sound. I'm also going to reduce the attack on the amp envelope so I can do a nice pluck. Very good. Back to the spatializer once again. Let's choose sync mode. Bring the mix up to 50% and bring the feedback up to 90 and play around with the size. Okay, so that's sounding pretty weird, but to get a real 16 multi-tap delay, let's do the LFO trick again to get the voices at 16 different values. We'll change the mod envelope to a really short decay with no sustain. Bring the release value of the amp envelope up so the delays don't fade away too quick. And we'll go back to the effects, apply LFO2 to the spatializer's size with a bit of feedback, around 75% mix. Not bad, but let's move over to the sound engine and make it brighter. So there we go. That's the spatializer in a nutshell. There's so many uses for this, and I've just shown you some basics, but with voice modulation control for all three faders, things can get extremely weird. I'm personally not a huge fan of giving up on a sound, so if you make something in the synth engine you're not happy with, before you delete it or start a new patch, just spend a minute jamming it through the spatializer. You might accidentally make the best sound you've ever made. My name's Tom Cosm, and this is Sugar Bytes Aparillo.